I couldn't resist popping up on the walls to check out this amazing view.
I think we might have over-ordered, but we definitely wanted to try everything here.
I thought it was a bookstore, but it's actually a sardine shop.
When you wake up in this room, you definitely know that you are waking up in Portugal.
That was the spot where most people go to appreciate Cabo da Roca, but we found somewhere that's just a little more special.
Apparently this is what Lisbon is like in the off season. We're here in the middle of November and this is what the crowds are like.
So usually our top recommendation for visiting a popular city like Lisbon is to go in the shoulder season or the off season. I mean, really any time other than summer.
But apparently a few others have clued into this as well because we can't believe what the crowds are like here. I can only imagine what July is like.
I do think it's still worth it to plan your trip anytime between November to March. You're probably going to run into some rainy weather, but it is truly your best opportunity to see the city with fewer crowds.
Fortunately, we've got even more tips for you guys. We've had a whole month here in Lisbon, and we've come up with a few ways to enjoy this place without feeling totally overrun by all the other tourists.
We're going to share all of that, plus we've got a little bonus for you at the end, how much we spent for a month in Lisbon. But let's get started with our first tip, which is getting up extra early in the morning to have the whole city mostly to yourself. We're here at 7:30 in the morning. The sun is just coming up. I mean, it's a beautiful time of day, and we're about to do a self-guided tour of the city.
Our free walking tour today is courtesy of the Rick Steves app. So we love this app. Rick Steves does amazing free audio tours of a number of cities, but it's really just a small handful of cities. So when you find one, he has one for Lisbon, then definitely give it a listen because these tours are absolute gold. And the first stop on our tour is actually right here in the Praça do Comércio. So that's the commercial square. Now you saw us walking through here, kind of stumbling through on our very first day in Lisbon. But today we're actually getting the historic download. And we're getting the download of the square and also that wonderful statue right over there of King Jose I. And apparently he is the one who was credited for pulling Lisbon back together after the earthquake and the tsunami of 1755. So the Lisbon that we're going to be walking through this morning is the one that was created after that time since so much of the city was devastated.
By the way, if you're new to our channel, I'm Gillian, this is Stephanie, and of course, everywhere we go, we bring with us these little guys, Jasper and Huxley.
So the four of us are traveling the world full time and sharing it with all of you guys as we go. I have to say, I just love coming out to see a city in these early mornings before any of the other tourists come out. I think it's just so lovely to see the city when it's just starting to wake up for the day. And without any of the crowds, we finally get to see these gorgeous mosaic sidewalks that Lisbon is so famous for. So apparently it takes quite a bit of skill to put these together, and they are truly throughout the entire city. I've honestly never seen a city that is so thoroughly cobblestoned as Lisbon. And even though they're very beautiful, they're also a little bit treacherous. We have seen so many people slip and fall, so especially with the wet weather. So it's definitely a city that's not as easy to get around if you're less mobile, but definitely worth the effort. I can see why there are a lot of these tuk-tuks that drive people around the city, and I think that's a really good alternative if you have any concerns about making your way on these slightly treacherous but very beautiful sidewalks.
So of course there are no shortage of churches in Lisbon, and so this one behind me is the next stop on our tour, the Church of St. Nicholas. Now as you can see, the facade on this one is on the more simple side because it's an example from the post-earthquake period when there was more of an emphasis on building infrastructure, and apparently there are actually shops and apartments that are part of the same building too, which I think is something quite unusual.
Perfect, thank you. Well, the best part about doing a self-guided tour of the city is that we can stop anytime we want to have a beautiful latte. First coffee of the day, always goes down well. And apparently we found the perfect spot where we could admire these gorgeous tiles on the building that Lisbon is so famous for. And what I found really interesting from our Rick Steves tour that we've been doing this morning is that tiles were added to buildings about a generation after the earthquake. And this is because Lisbon was finally moving away from its austerity phase of building an infrastructure, and the city could finally afford a few luxuries again.
The next place that Rick wants us to check out is this cod shop that is just behind me. Now, of course, salted cod is a very important part of Portuguese cuisine, and he's talking about a dish, a very famous dish called bacalhau à brás, which is a very funny coincidence because just last night I tried my hand at that dish and it turned out fantastic. It's made, of course, with salted cod, matchstick potatoes, mixed in some egg, topped with olives, and it was absolutely wonderful.
And now I find myself carrying two dogs. Suddenly, the mornings are a little chilly right now in Lisbon. It is November. The afternoons are super sunny and hot, but the mornings are chilly, so the dogs needed a bit of a carry. We've reached the midpoint of our tour, so we're here now at Rocio Square, and it is such a wonderful scene here today. So I think we've kind of picked the best time of year to come to Lisbon because they've got all the Christmas markets set up right here in the square. So it really is very festive looking. And of course, this is also the cultural heart of Lisbon. We have the National Theatre, which is such an impressive building in the background. We've got some wonderful statuary happening. It really is gorgeous. Now, there's still a lot more of the city that we're gonna see today, but I think we're gonna end our video tour right here so that we're leaving something amazing and some fun surprises for you guys when you come to Lisbon and do your own tour.
Normally we'd say that if you're looking to avoid the crowds, to try some of those off the beaten path types of attractions. But here in Lisbon, I don't think there's really much that's truly off the beaten path. I mean, there are tourists just about everywhere. So instead, we'd suggest looking for alternative sites. These are the places that don't usually get visited if you're in Lisbon for just one day. And that's what we're up to today. We've come to LX Factory just behind me, which is this historic warehouse district that's being revitalized. So now it's a really interesting environment for arts and little shops and galleries and cafes, just a super creative vibe. There's just like art pieces everywhere. So my understanding is that these were just derelict warehouses until a few years ago, but now it's just a really lively place, and it's really nice to see this different side of Lisbon, a more modern side of the city. I thought it was a bookstore, but it's actually a sardine shop. Okay, I think this time this is the bookstore that is so famous. I was reading about it on Google. So why don't we go inside and see what all the fuss is about? Oh, this place is really neat, and there's even a cafe inside so you can have a drink while you read your book. So it is lively here, but it's definitely not crowded. So I would really recommend, if you want to take a break from the main sites, to come here for a few hours to relax. So when the crowds in Lisbon are just way too much, you can always hop on a train or a bus to visit some of the beautiful little towns that are just outside the city. Today we took the bus for about an hour, and our first stop is Caldas da Rainha. This place became famous for its hot springs, but we're just here to wander around and soak in the small city vibes.
So we're just making our way down the pedestrian area of the town, and I have to say it's really charming. So not only is this town very famous for its hot springs, but also for the ceramic art, and I am seeing it everywhere. I think the architecture is just so lovely here. So I think I'm ready to move to this town based on this market alone. This is an amazing fresh market. They really have everything you'd want, and it's really high quality. And apparently this market is open 364 days a year, so they're only closed over Christmas. So these vendors are out here all the time. And I can't think of anything more wonderful than being able to come to a market like this every single day. Well, I really love it when a city has some nice green space, and I have to say that this is a very nice example of a park. Honestly, as we have been in Lisbon, we've been pretty hard pressed to find even a tree in downtown Lisbon. So it's such a refreshing change to come to this little city and just get a chance to be amongst the trees and nature. This is just incredible. The city has black swans. What a majestic bird. We used to see black swans in Singapore, so it's really special to be seeing them all the way over here in Portugal. How incredible to have this right in the middle of the city. It's like a beautiful little pond. We've got a beautiful old building behind it, and then all the wonderful birds all around. We've reached the second destination of our big trip out of town. So we're now at the little town of Obidos, and what this is famous for is being an absolutely beautiful medieval town, and it's surrounded by fortified walls that are still intact after all of these centuries. So I'm really looking forward to taking a look inside. We're just going to head on through to the city gates. Oh, wow, you really do feel like you're entering a fortified city. We are just a few steps inside the gates, and already I can see this town is absolutely magical.
As you guys know, Stephanie's not much for heights, but I couldn't resist popping up on the walls to check out this amazing view.
This town is really special. So after 4 years of travel, we spent a lot of time in Europe, we've seen a lot of old towns, but I do think this one is really worth a visit. I haven't seen that many towns that are so well preserved. I mean, these fortified walls are just wonderful. And then to get a vantage point like this, it really is quite memorable. We're also pretty keen to avoid the tourist masses during meal times, but we're finding that it can be a little challenging in Lisbon. So at first glance, it feels like all of the restaurants in the center of the city really do cater to tourists, and it's really hard to find those hidden gems that still feel somehow authentic. So this square in R.LUM.R is really a perfect example. So you can see right away that it seems really touristy, but we did find a little restaurant right around the corner. It has very good reviews on Google Maps, and the menu is in Portuguese, so these are very good signs. So I do feel that the gems are there, you just need to do a little digging.
So one dourada. Well, I didn't quite manage any Portuguese, but I got the order in.
We are starting things off right with a glass of the House Vinho Verde. So this is the green wine that I've come to appreciate in Portugal. It's a young wine, and this one is a very hefty pour. I'm liking this restaurant already. Okay, I'm not a wine expert. It seems very fresh and light, and I think it's gonna go really well with all the fish that we just ordered.
Oh, nice. Wow. Obrigada. Looks amazing.
Our food has arrived, and it is an absolute feast. I think we might have over-ordered, but we definitely wanted to try everything here. So what we have come to expect from Portuguese food, it's a very simple, rustic cuisine. There's a real emphasis on fresh flavors and the raw ingredients, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. So we have a beautiful grilled dorada fish with some lovely rice and little carrots mixed in, and then we have grilled calamari here, and we absolutely had to order these fries. So these fries are definitely homemade. They're irregular cuts, and they look really, really delicious. And then it is a lot of, starch and fish. So of course we had to add in this lovely looking salad, which just looks so fresh and so good, and it'll be a good counterpoint to everything else. So I'm going to employ my very best fish carving skills just to get a nice morsel to try. And look at all the char from the grilling. It looks so good. And then complement it with this lovely rice. That is some crispy skin there. This looks really good. It's a nice, solid, firm fish. Oh my goodness. You really taste the char, and it is so good. It just takes a fish and elevates it to the next level. And then this rice just looks like a really nice accompaniment. Oh, it's almost it's a little bit creamy. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, look at this calamari. I'm thinking this is gonna be just as good. I mean, it really got a good grilling. So I'll try to carve off a piece from over here. So they put some onions and parsley in the center. And let me give it a try. So delicious. Definitely has a bit of chew to it. But really, really good. And of course I have to cap it with one of these amazing fries. Oh, really good. So simple, but such a great meal and so perfect on a sunny afternoon in Lisbon. And I'm thinking that we made the right choice with the restaurant because this place seems to be very popular with the locals. Because we're slow travelers, we always choose to stay in an apartment instead of in a hotel. I mean, we're usually in a destination for a full month, so we want to be able to cook our own meals and feel like we're part of a neighborhood. For our stay here in Lisbon, we ended up in an apartment in R.LUM.R. Now, this is obviously one of Lisbon's very touristy neighborhoods. It's the oldest neighborhood in the city, and this is where you want to come if you want to hear a late night fado performance. But right now, we're in the off season, and we're finding it to be relatively quiet here. I mean, there are a lot of tourists, but it's actually still a place where locals live. This is our building right here, and like everything else in the neighborhood, it was built in the 1700s, which means it's super charming, but also there's no elevator, so you have to imagine us lugging our luggage all the way up those stairs. Of course, technically, I wasn't the one carrying our luggage. Gillian did the heavy lifting, but I was cheering her on. Come on, Jasper. Well, here we are, and we actually did a very full and complete tour of this place in our earlier video, so we're just going to give you guys the highlights. As you can see, this is a lovely, charming old apartment, so we're really enjoying these big windows with the wooden shutters, and then we've got these tall ceilings, more wood on the ceiling, and then all the antique touches everywhere. We've got the bedroom over here, and this room is really just lovely. I think that the host did an amazing job with this space. We've got these lovely blue and white tiles everywhere, and apparently they are original to the building, so that makes them around 250 years old, something like that. So when you wake up in this room, you definitely know that you are waking up in Portugal. So the kitchen over here, it was totally fine, very functional. We did a whole lot of cooking in there. And then of course, the view of the windows over here is just classic Lisbon. It's so gorgeous.
So even though Lisbon is so popular and even though there's a lot of inflation, we were able to get this place for a fairly decent price.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into what we spent on this place and what we spent on everything else this past month. But first, let's get into our thoughts on Lisbon.
So I would say that in many ways, Lisbon is everything we hoped for. It's a beautiful city. There's loads of history and charm.
I mean, really, there's so much to see just walking around from neighborhood to neighborhood.
That said, it was even more crowded than we expected, and we were here in the off season.
For example, the lineup to take that very, very famous Tram 28 on a tour of the city, it was just ridiculous.
We felt we had to get a little creative with our sightseeing, look for ways to enjoy our time without the crowds.
Yeah, so we rented a car for the day to drive through Sintra, but we made the executive decision not to line up for hours to see Buckingham Palace.
No, we weren't interested in that. Well, we just finished hiking about half an hour up to the Moorish castle, and it was such a beautiful hike through the woods. And from here, we have an amazing view of Buckingham Palace. Actually, that's it right there just behind me. So instead, we explored a little of the coast, we saw some quiet villages, and we made our way to Cabo da Roca, which is Europe's most westerly point. So that was the spot where most people go to appreciate Cabo da Roca, but we found somewhere that's just a little more special.
And that's actually a very good segue into our costs because we ended up spending $0 on entertainment. And that's basically because we didn't pay any entry fees.
Instead, we spent on our transportation. We took the bus to the Silver Coast. We used public transit to explore other parts of the city.
Really, our entertainment costs were kind of wrapped up in our transportation costs, which totaled just over $100 US.
And our other form of entertainment was, of course, dining out.
And I would say that's the very best kind of entertainment. Although generally, there weren't really many bargains to be found for dining out, at least not here in the center of the city.
Not really. So a lunch for two with wine was actually maybe around 30 to 45 US.
And our total, so we had restaurant meals every few days and then a lot of snacks in between, that came to almost $400.
But the part of our spending that really surprised us...
In a good way.
Yes, it was the groceries.
Yeah.
They were just so cheap. It seemed like everything I looked at in the grocery store was 1 to 2 euros.
We ended up spending just $280 on our groceries. And we haven't paid such a small amount since we were in a place like Colombia.
Now for our Airbnb. Like we said, this lovely apartment right in the heart of Alfama came in at a surprisingly low price.
Of course, it's way more than what a local would pay for a rental, and we're quite aware of that, but it was still, for an Airbnb, it wasn't bad at all. We paid just over $1,600, which we had negotiated down from the listed price.
And the host very kindly threw in complimentary weekly cleanings.
That's my favorite type of added value from a host.
So with the Airbnb and all our other expenses, our total came out to...
just over $2,400, which I feel is a very good deal considering how much inflation we've been seeing in Europe recently.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Now, if you're looking for the full tour of our Airbnb and a closer look at this incredible neighborhood we've been staying in,
it really is very special in this neighborhood.
You can check out the next video right over here. Well, we have almost made it to the top, and we're leaving quiet Alfama, and I see the tourists are really starting to gather at this point. Oh my gosh. Wow, it is super busy. It was so quiet before. It's like, where did all these people come from?